Why are so many people suddenly using GLP-1 medications? Did we suddenly lose willpower? Did our genetics change in a decade? Or did something in our environment change? Nearly 90% of American adults now show at least one marker of metabolic dysfunction: elevated waist circumference, impaired fasting glucose, hypertension, high triglycerides, or insulin resistance. And when that many people are metabolically unwell, the problem is unlikely to be individual character. It's systemic. GLP-1 medications work because they amplify a hormone your body already makes. But the injection isn't the real story. The pathway is. And once you understand that pathway, you can decide whether amplification or restoration makes more sense for you. When you eat, especially protein, specialized L cells in the small intestine release GLP-1 or glucagon-like peptide 1. GLP-1 binds to receptors in the pancreas. There, it enhances insulin secretion, but only when glucose is present. That's important. It amplifies a glucose signal, and it doesn't force insulin randomly. GLP-1 also slows gastric emptying, so food remains in the stomach longer. Fullness lasts longer. But GLP-1 doesn't act in the bloodstream. It communicates with the brain through circulation and through the vagus nerve, the major communication highway between the gut and the brain. Now, in the hypothalamus, the GLP-1 reduces the drive to continue eating. It increases the perception of sufficiency. Suppression is different from sufficiency. One is imposed. The other is biological alignment. So GLP-1 works alongside with other gut hormones. CCK, also known as cholecystokinin, is released in response to fat and protein. It slows digestion. It signals that food is present. Then there's PYY, or peptide YY. That is released further down in the intestine. That suppresses appetite after meals. So protein strongly stimulates GLP-1 and PYY. Fat stimulates CCK. Together, they create layered satiety signals. This is not a drug pathway. This is human physiology. Frequent refined carbohydrate intake leads to repeated insulin elevations. Repeated insulin elevations reduce insulin sensitivity over time. And as insulin sensitivity declines, the body must produce more insulin to manage the same glucose load. That state is called hyperinsulinemia, and it destabilizes appetite regulation. Blood sugar rises, insulin rises. Blood sugar falls, hunger returns. Not hours later, sooner. The system becomes reactive instead of stable, and that signaling is instability. That's what happens when environment and biology are misaligned. And when that state is combined with an ultra-processed food environment, the issue compounds. Satiety signals weaken. Reward signals dominate. Regulation becomes unpredictable. So ultra-processed foods are optimized for something called the bliss point, the precise combination of salt, refined carbohydrate, fat, and texture that maximizes reward. Reward and satiety are different biological systems, but dopamine drives seeking behavior, and satiety hormones signal stopping behavior. Modern food stimulates dopamine aggressively, but they do not proportionally stimulate GLP-1, PYY, and CCK, those satiety hormones. So let's compare two meals. Meal 1, you have 40 grams of protein, whole foods, moderate natural fat, minimal refined carbohydrate. Meal 2, ultra-processed snack food, low protein, high refined carbohydrate, engineered texture. The first stimulates layered satiety hormones. The second stimulates reward more than fullness. Those are biologically different experiences, and that's physiology responding to design. GLP-1 medications reduce appetite effectively, but they do not automatically improve food quality, protein adequacy, micronutrient density, or muscle preservation. Some individuals continue eating the same ultra-processed food environment, just in smaller quantities. So if protein intake is low and resistance training is absent, lean mass may decline. Skeletal muscle is the primary site for glucose disposal. So when muscle mass declines, glucose disposal declines too. When glucose disposal declines, insulin demand increases. And when insulin demand increases, insulin resistance progresses. Appetite suppression alone does not repair insulin resistance. The behavior change must support the treatment. I work with clients who use GLP-1 medications. When appetite suppression is paired with 30 to 40 grams of protein per meal and resistance training 2 to 3 times per week, outcomes are very different. Lean mass is preserved. Insulin sensitivity improves. Metabolic rate is protected. That is addressing the underlying pathophysiology of insulin resistance. So when medication is used without rebuilding metabolic infrastructure, the medication is doing most of the metabolic work. Now, let me be clear, I am not anti-medication. I am anti-fragile metabolic infrastructure. Earlier in my journey, I tried structured programs, medications, and bariatric surgery. What ultimately changed my metabolic trajectory was rebuilding my environment through a low carbohydrate lifestyle. Today, I flex between ketogenic, ketovore, and carnivore, depending on what my body needs. All three approaches prioritize stable insulin, adequate protein, and metabolic strength. Personally, I feel best on carnivore from a satiety and an inflammatory perspective. Higher protein, minimal hyperpalatable exposure, more predictable signaling. As a primal health coach, I approach metabolism through an evolutionary physiology, not as a trend, not as a rigid rule set, but more as an alignment. When the environment matches the biology we evolved with, signaling works more predictably. And when it doesn't, dysregulation follows. That's the framework I coach from. If someone wants to explore rebuilding satiety signals through a structured low carbohydrate approach before considering pharmacological amplification, that option exists. It's significantly less expensive, it avoids medication-related side effects, and it builds metabolic infrastructure that supports long-term sustainability. For some people, that may be sufficient. For others, medications may still be appropriate. The key is making informed decision. And if you want help navigating that, whether alongside medication or before it, I currently have room for 2 clients. Details are in the description below. The question isn't whether GLP-1 medications work. They do. The question is whether we rely solely on amplification or whether we rebuild metabolic infrastructure. Did we suddenly lose willpower, or did we change the environment in which our hormones evolved? Understanding the pathway allows you to make an informed decision, and informed decisions are empowering.